Hello and welcome to my video. I'm Cody the Coin Raptor, and in today's video, I want to talk about the long-term Bitcoin cycle, and specifically where we are right now in the long-term Bitcoin cycle. Now, Bitcoin has been up about 1.4% over the last 24 hours. This has been largely on the back of a deal being done. So if we go over here, take a look at Bloomberg. It says that a debt limit deal has been agreed to largely in principle in the U.S. in order to raise the debt ceiling. Now, for those of you who have tuned in on my previous videos, you know that one of the biggest issues, perceived issues right now for the market has been getting this debt limit deal done. And now that one has kind of been agreed to in principle, we've actually seen a bit of a rally in the Bitcoin price. Now, I've also said previously that I think that either way, Bitcoin stands to benefit because if the debt limit deal doesn't get done, then that just shows that governments are unable to do basic things like being able to pay their bills on time, which would facilitate more people moving to an alternative finance system. And on the other side, Bitcoin does stand to benefit because the stock market and traditional finance markets also tend to move the Bitcoin price. So that would mean that Bitcoin would probably wind up getting a bump from that. Because we've seen in the past where stalls in this debt limit crisis have pushed the price lower. Now, what's interesting about this debt limit deal that was agreed to in principle is that this debt limit deal seems to have a way to negate a potential 30% tax on cryptocurrency mining firms. Now, the Biden administration had come out and said, we're going to go ahead and impose this tax. And according to the Congressman Warren Davidson, he responded in a tweet specifically. One of the victories is blocking taxes from Bitcoin mining. So it seems like that's actually a pretty huge win for Bitcoin miners, that if this is the case, that they will not be taxed at that 30% rate. Now, I think that's particularly important. I wasn't able to go through the entirety of the text of the bill and look for that specific part, so we're going to have to go ahead and watch this carefully and make sure that's the case. But I was able to look through it. It doesn't say anything about Bitcoin or digital currencies that I could find, but I will go ahead and update this as I get more information on what's specifically in that agreement, because it could have a huge impact on the Bitcoin price and on crypto in general. So I want to go ahead and tie this into the larger Bitcoin cycle, okay? So I know you guys have probably wound up seeing this chart a few times, and this is traditionally used for Wall Street, but it works very well when you talk about investor psychology and trader psychology. Regardless of the asset being bought or sold, investor psychology is largely the same. And right now, if we go ahead and take a look at this psychology cheat sheet, we can actually see there's a lot to take away from this. And I'm going to go ahead and point out exactly where I think we are right now in the cycle. But it starts off with hope, optimism, it goes to belief, thrill, euphoria, and then complacency, and then finally anxiety, denial, and panic. And at the bottom here, you have anger and depression. All right, and then the cycle starts over again. This has a complete cycle of a market, and specifically the kind of mental state that people go through when they look at this kind of thing. Now we can actually kind of overlay this specifically with the Bitcoin chart, and the results are shocking. So if we take a look at our Bitcoin chart, we can see that it looks very similar to that psychology cheat sheet. In fact, if you kind of ignore this first hump over here, it looks almost exactly like it. So again, I'm going to kind of interlay these. So you have this little pop up here, and then you have a huge slide, and then a little bit of sideways action, and then you start to see this rally here at the bottom here. So this is also known as disbelief, right? This is a sucker's rally. So if you go ahead and take a look at basically our chart, we can see where we are exactly in that cycle by noticing how incredibly similar the cycles are. And so right now, that would put us right in the middle of what we would call the disbelief stage, the disbelief stage. Now, the disbelief stage, usually occurs after we've had a significant rally in a bear market, and that's normally when people start doubting it. They don't think that this is real, that this is actually a rally that could be sustained. But that's usually how it starts. And then if we go over, take a look at the left side here, the next step would be hope, right? And that would be recovery, all right? Now, if we think about this in terms of the Bitcoin cycle, I'd like to go ahead and point out that the next halving is going to be in 321 days. The ETA is going to be April 15th of 2024. So that would put us at less than a year until the next halving. And the reason why this is important is because Bitcoin has been known to rally after the halving and push to a new all-time high. If we take a look at our realized price chart here, that gives us an overlay of both the previous halvings and the realized price. What we can see here is that we're kind of in the middle of the beginning of the next cycle, or just before the beginning of the next cycle. So we have here in blue 0. This is usually when we'd have the next halving occur. So after this blue point here, we usually wind up getting a strong rally. We've seen previous times in Bitcoin, going all the way back to 2011, that this has always been the case, where you have this blue time right here, and then you get your halving, and then it immediately sparks a rally in the price, and the price goes up from here. And again, if you think about market psychology and investor psychology, this makes perfect sense, because you can almost draw out the exact same stages in this realized price chart. And when you take a look at this, so again, you have a bit of a sucker's rally, that disbelief right about here. So you'll notice that it kind of crosses above the realized price. And usually when it crosses above the realized price, it doesn't come back down and retest the realized price. Now, the one time it did do that was back in 2020 because of the COVID pandemic, but normally it will not do that. So what that means is that we are kind of in the point where Bitcoin is not likely to go back down to the realized price, which currently sits at about 21,000. Now, that being said, we could wind up chopping sideways for a little bit until we actually hit the next halving. And then when we hit the next halving, that is when I expect the next bull market to begin. So this right now, this is nothing that I haven't said before. I do think that the next bull market's not going to start until sometime in 2024, or maybe a little bit later on in the year, and then move into 2025. But for now, what we're seeing is the start of that, again, that disbelief after the depression. And then now we get this section here, hope, right? And we start thinking about recovery. This may be a little bit of sideways chop here, but then the halving happens in April of 2024, and it pushes us to new highs. And I think we're going to go at the very least, up past the previous all-time high and surpass that level. Now, what this would look like here, if we take a look again back at our Bitcoin chart, is I've drawn in what this would likely look like, and again, a very rough approximation. But what we have here is a steady increase in the Bitcoin price to the point where it actually breaks out above that 69,000 level and then shoots higher. Now, again, this kind of goes all the way into 2025. But that being said, for the next couple of months, we could wind up seeing some more sideways chop for a little bit before we wind up seeing the next halving. But we could also wind up getting a little bit of an increase, a run up into next year as well. So that's entirely possible. Now, what I do think, though, is that we are not likely to retest the lows here back at 16,000 or these even, I would even say, down to 20,000. That would be very surprising to me, especially if we take a look at our realized chart. As long as this framework is still in play and it still applies, we should not wind up retesting that 21,000 level. So that's how I see things right now. That's how I think we're fitting into the current Bitcoin cycle. And again, we are right now between disbelief and hope. Now, this is normally where you would be very interested in buying a Bitcoin if you're a long-term holder, which I am, which is something that I've been looking at as well. I'm already pretty well invested right now in Bitcoin, but it is something I'm always considering adding to, especially as you move past hope and get into optimism. That's when the FOMO really starts, the fear of missing out. You get belief, then thrill, and then euphoria. And then at the very top here at euphoria, maximum possible fear of missing out. And then you get in combination with short squeezes can push the price even higher. Now, this is definitely going to be something that again, a very rough approximation of what I expect is going to be happening. So, but as always, this is not financial advice. Make sure you guys do your own research. But the Bitcoin cycle right now is exactly where I believed it would be. Now, this is in line with what we would see from a previous market cycle. And so I haven't seen anything to show that we are moving away from that kind of cycle, that format. And that's something I will be monitoring for the foreseeable future. So if you guys are interested in seeing that, if you want the most up-to-date information, most up-to-date chart TA, right, follow me on Twitter for that. Please like and subscribe if you guys enjoyed this video. I do enjoy putting these videos out, and I try to make them fairly regularly. And that's all I've got for you guys today. Have a fantastic day.